absolutely hammered off the highs of the year. I think we're down something like 7% since those highs back in March. So it's been difficult. Let's turn to the bond market. 2-year, 10-year, 30-year, breaching 5% once again in yesterday's session, then backing away. Backing away again this morning. We're down 3 basis points. 495.35 on a 10-year, Lisa. 463.66.
Fed Chair Powell said the quiet part out loud, that these were not just bumps in the road. 3 of them makes him uneasy. And that basically he didn't use the bump word, just to be very clear. But he did say that it does suggest that we're not making as much progress on inflation, and maybe they might let policy take further time to work, extending the timeline. Yeah, the emphasis on time and just reinforcing the moves we've already seen both in bonds and in foreign exchange. So switch up the board and get to FX. We'll go through some currency pairs for you. The euro back to about 106, bouncing back today. Bit of yen strength on the board, but this has been dominated by dollar strength and yen weakness over the last few weeks. Lisa, dollar yen 154.60, and not really a peep out of the Bank of Japan, not really a peep out of the finance ministry in Japan either, because what can they do? What are they going to do? Throw money uphill and hope that it doesn't come down? I mean, at a certain point, people are talking about 160 being a testing point for them because they cannot counter a strong dollar, given that they are not raising rates materially from here. What I keep asking is, when does the dollar break something? Because right now we keep seeing strong dollar at the same time that the rest of the world wants to start a rate-cutting cycle. How does that work if they're trying to support their economies? I want to turn to sterling as well, Lisa. 124.67. Cable up.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Welcome to our Inner Circle Live pre-New York session. I'm your host, Ryan Carthage. We'll be joined shortly by my awesome partner, Mr. Ben Allen. Hope everybody is doing well today on this awesome Wednesday. As always, let's turn off all distractions, grab pen and paper, let's take lots of notes, and let's make sure that we participate and engage, all right? And as always, we want to make sure that we are taking massive action, and that action standing for accepting all possible losses before entering a trade, centering yourself, body, mind, and spirit, ensuring a balanced approach to trading, trust in your education, strategy, trading skills, and intuition. Imagine your trade successfully materializing. Obey your trading strategy, avoiding decisions based on greed or fear, and never looking back or stopping once your trade has commenced. All right. So let's get to it. Had quite a bit happen yesterday. We will dig through some of those things from a fundamental perspective. And as I'm switching over, just drop me one in the chat if you can hear me okay. Cool. All right. Cool. Appreciate it. All right. Let's do this. So we'll take a look at the calendar first, and then we'll go through some articles because there's a decent amount to cover. So yesterday, from a announcement perspective, we had Canadian CPI, right? Came in below expectation, right? So things slowing down a little bit more than expected in Canada. Excuse me. So some of those CAD pairs and CAD crosses we saw start to make a bit of a retreat. So we'll take a look at some of those. Then we had a ton of people speaking yesterday, which we'll talk about. Jerome Powell and his message to the people at the IMF conference in Washington. But then we had last night CPI for the New Zealand dollar come in as expected, right? So nothing surprising there. And then we had exports for the yen come in. Those numbers were, exports were above expectation, imports were below expectation. So negative trade balance. And we'll take a look at some of the stuff that means for the yen as well, and some of the concerns that business owners have. This morning, we had core CPI for the pound came in above expectations slightly, right? It did decrease from previous month, right? Consumer price index did decrease from the previous month. However, didn't decrease as much as expected, right? So things didn't slow down as much. Then CPI for the euro year over year came in as expected across the board. So we're good there. Later on today, we have crude oil inventories. We got a ton of members speaking at the IMF conference. So you got Governor Bailey speaking, member from the ECB speaking, member from the Bank of England speaking, President Lagarde speaking at 1 o'clock. No, 2 o'clock, sorry. And then FOMC members speaking as well. And then later on tonight, you have unemployment rate for the Australian dollar, right? And then you have a board member from the BOJ speaking as well at 11. It's what's that? 21. That's 12:30. Not 12:30. 7:30. Sorry. So that's where we are for the day on the fundamental side. We'll look at trading economics, and then we'll take a look at some other articles that we have. Where is my deal? There we go. All right. So over to trading economics, right? UK inflation falls less than expected. We talked about that. Trade balance swings to a surplus. Talked about that. Jerome Powell. Federal Reserve left. No, this is an old article. So this isn't updated from what I wanted to say. Let's see. Yeah, that article isn't updated properly. Basically, from the conversation with with the IMF yesterday, Jerome Powell stated that they needed more time, right? And Benny posted details of the sentiments in the community yesterday. But basically, the Fed needs more time to see the impact of the increased interest rates on inflation. Inflation is not moving down as they expected, so they need more time. He shied away from saying that an increase may be necessary, but he did say that there would be more time needed. As we talked about yesterday, there are investors talking about the potential for an increase. And there's a few articles out there talking about what that could mean for different parts of the economy if there is an increase that is needed, impacts on the housing market, and other aspects of the economy. So that's something that's out there. We'll continue to follow that and how things move there. You had Brent ease on demand concerns, seeing as things will be higher for longer. You also had China delayed their interest rate cuts, along with what's happening with what Jerome Powell said yesterday as well. Here goes, said that Tuesday, a lack of further progress so far this year on returning inflation to our goal. He indicated that policy will likely stay in place until inflation trends sustainably toward 2%. On the supply side, investors continue to monitor the geopolitical developments in the Middle East. The Israel War Cabinet, they postponed a meeting that was set for Tuesday to decide on their response regarding the Iran attack. So speaking of that, you had Saudi Arabia and the UAE warn of war dangers as the tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East. The quote that kind of sums up everything is at the end here. I'll share this article with you guys, but where did it go? basically they said that this would be very bad. I don't see the quote that I was looking for, but um, mm, 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 mm. I don't remember where the quote was. They're calling for self-restraint from the danger of the war. And its dire consequences. All right. So they don't want a regional war. If they get a regional war, then things will continue to escalate from there, and expand beyond a regional war. So more people are stepping in to urge Israel to proceed with caution, um, and take a step back from retaliating in this tit for tat scenario that's developing. All right, so that's the take on the war. Now on to Japan. Things continue to push to the upside. The dollar continues to run. Obviously, with Jerome Powell's conversation, things have to be higher for longer. Japanese executives are calling for government to step in and bolster the yen, right? And these are from your small and mid-sized companies. They're suffering from rising costs of import materials as the yen continues to track lower. There was a quote here. It's the scenario is bad not just for the country, but for their company, but also for Japan as a whole, right? So the major concerns from business owners in Japan regarding the weakness of the yen, and they're calling for the government to step in. Yesterday at the IMF meeting, Seoul, Korea, and the finance minister of Japan, they discussed the issue kind of off to the side, and both of them vowed because the won Korean won reached the level of 1400 per dollar, right? For the first time in 17 months. And this level for the yen is the lowest in 34 years. So both of them vowed to take appropriate actions. So they're amping up this conversation because other countries now are being impacted by the strength of the dollar, not just the yen. So other folks are looking at the situation. Some of smaller developing countries, but they're having broader conversations. So we're getting closer to potential intervention. If we do linger on, it could be more of a monetary scenario where the bank uses interest rates to manage the situation as opposed to just the typical intervention that we see in buying of the yen. So that's what happened yesterday. And I foresee more happening today as those IMF meetings continue throughout the day today. As I stated, more members coming to the microphone to talk about different things from a financial perspective. So that's where we are overall. Benny, good morning, bro.
Ryan, good morning. How are you?
I am doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good, man. Always glad to be here. The weather's
Yes,
warming
sir.
up, so that's good. That's always a good thing for me.
Man, absolutely. Get to sit outside, some sunshine. Can't beat it.
Man, that's it. That's it. So nothing like being able to sit out on your patio and hit the charts.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
man.
Top of mind for you, man.
Man, just I sent you that article yesterday about, it kind of plays into Jerome Powell's saying, hey, higher for longer. So it's a Business Insider article. I'll post it in the chat. That the average U.S. home price could spike 20% to a record $500,000 if the Fed cuts interest rates too soon. So that that is crazy. So the whole
Insane.
narrative about higher for longer is very important.
Yep.
Very important. And you keep mentioning about how, you keep mentioning the housing, market and how that plays a critical role, in the economy. I mean, a spike of 20% in the housing market, that would do some damage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of just plays into that narrative, of higher for longer and not being so quick to cut rates.
Heck yeah, man. It's definitely going to be an interesting scenario. I also saw Deutsche Bank sees new risk hovering over the real estate market. So banks
Yep.
are starting to identify quote unquote new issues um, in the real estate market. And you also had um, global regulators with their they want to better prepare funds for margin calls. Um, so you're seeing different
Wow.
entities stepping in
Wow.
to to have different conversations, and these are things that we normally talk about just in general conversation. But I'll post this article as well where they're talking with hedge funds to ensure that they have liquidity in place and their risk management is intact in the event that quote unquote unusual circumstances present themselves. Um, so it says recommend stress tests for extreme but plausible scenarios is the quote that they used. So yeah, dude, it impacts across the board. And that real estate market is definitely going to be continue to be interesting because of the stress that's there, and with owners not being able to ultimately pay their bills, um, and and then banks having to take the brunt of that, right? And what that looks like. Um, so it's definitely going to be an interesting story as we continue to trek forward with this interest rate conversation and what that means for the overall economy and all of the entities that play a part there, man.
Indeed. Indeed. Wow, that's some powerful stuff there. You know, that's telling them to be prepared, making sure they have, man, that's crazy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I just think it's due, just looking at the technical levels, S&P and things like that, I just think it's due for a major correction.
Yep, yep.
I think it's due. So we'll continue to watch it closely.
I agree with you. This is the article on Deutsche Bank and sees new risk covering over the real estate market. Um, so yeah, yeah, yeah. The issues are real. It's just about when they actually present themselves to the public, right? You also have another interesting thing that I saw as I go over to the charts. You also have I read this article talking about hedge funds um, have the most short yen contracts in 17 years, um, which was also interesting to me. Obviously, they take the other side of the market, but that caught my eye as well. So the article kind of talked about how if the Bank of Japan does intervene, then we could see a bounce back um, relatively quickly. I have to find that article again, but that was also interesting to me regarding hedge funds and their positions.
So they're short the yen, right?
Yes,
So they're selling it.
yes,
So that's why we're seeing that, right? So if we were to
that's where I've
check
seen
on
the
that,
push.
yeah. So if we were checking on that CLT report, we would definitely see it. You
Yep,
know,
yep.
just week after week after week. So
And I
yeah, that's
believe,
just good confirmation.
let's see if I can find it real quick because it was like 161,000 contracts they increased
Yeah.
last week.
Oh wow. So they're just gonna
Yeah,
yeah
yeah.
yeah this is gonna force their hand.
Biggest bet against the yen since 2007.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. It's wild. Here's the article here. Um, 162,151 contracts which in dollar terms equates to $13.4 billion leveraged against the yen.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why we're seeing this the yen move the way that it is. Right. Aussie yen is kind of stalled, but if you look at the euro yen, the Swiss yen, right, running to the upside. You got the dollar yen also running to the upside. So that definitely impacts, right? You see that move just continued pushing to the upside there. So that makes sense on why we're seeing that push to the upside across the board on the yen right now.
Yep,
And like
they
you said,
haven't shifted at all, man.
no, they haven't. They haven't. They're we talked about yesterday, like they're just ignoring the warnings, right? So like you said, it definitely could force the hand of the BOJ to say, all right, here we go. So interesting times, man. Interesting time. Team, do you guys have any questions about any of this conversation as we hop over to the charts? No? No?
Actually, yeah, I have a question. So
What's up, Tom?
what would? Oh, hey man, how's it going? Everything okay? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
a nice one, nice one. So what would you say would be the biggest indicator, or would you think would be the indicator for the yen to actually make all the other pairs fall down?
The Bank of Japan actually pulling the trigger
Yep.
and
Oh,
intervening.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And generally when they intervene, it's not a small intervention. Like Benny talked about last week, like we can see these pairs move 500-600 pips
Mm.
quickly when they intervene, and they generally come in with large amounts to ensure that it impacts the market. So last time I did in 2002, it was a major move. You see, see if I can find that movement here. It was September here. This was the move. This is the pound yen, right? When they intervened last time, this was the move here. Right?
Wow. Oh, wow. And that
And
was in
that's
a short amount of time.
correct. The 11th to the 22nd, it dropped 1,700 pips. Right?
Okay.
So when they intervene, it comes. It comes. So yeah, so you'll see it, right? So that's why I'm watching it closely, just so that we can continue to be prepared. Because when it happens, you're gonna see the market start to jump around quite a bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Hey, no problem. All right, cool deal. All right, cool. I have a couple charts to take a look at, and then I'll turn it over to you guys, right? If you guys have any pairs you want to take a look at, you can drop those into the chat, and we will go through those. But I want to take a look at a couple of this Aussie Swiss. Price has been moving back down to the downside, right? We've seen more risk off sentiment. Commodity currencies taking a back seat. And even with the Swiss, you've seen some strength come in. So we've seen price pull back. The nice strong move to the upside, price pulled back. And you see, right, we had previous zone of resistance here, right? We broke out of that and we came back and retested, right? So now does this area hold? And do we see price continue pushing to the upside here? Okay. As we come down to the 4, right, you see we're sitting at 382 on the retracement on the 4-hour time frame. Okay, so nice strong pullback here. Do we see price settle in and start to make its way back to the upside? We drop the cloud on. you see we have broken through the cloud here. We were staying above the cloud, right? We broke below the cloud. So let's see what happens and see if we're able to get price to move back to the upside and continuous track long, breaking above that 59, 293 level and staying there and continue to move to the upside. All right. So as we come down to the 1, right, this is where we sit on the 1. Okay. Just shy of that 618 retracement. We came there once. We came back a second time. Price is trying to settle in here, right? So are we able to get back long here on this Aussie Swiss, right? So there's your setup there. Stop loss outside the A, right? And see if we can make that move to the upside for, I think it's, was that 193 pips to the matching D extension there at around 63.50. Right. So let's watch this one. And I'm looking at these Swissy pairs across the board, right? That Swiss yen is extremely high. And some of these other crosses are coming into sweet spots that we might have an opportunity to get back long on those. All right. Questions on the Aussie Swiss? You're welcome, JC.
Nope.
All right, cool deal. I clicked through the Swiss yen real quick, but let's take a look at it while we're here, right? From a weekly time frame, you see the pushback to the upside. We got that all-time high at 172.041. From a daily perspective, we're broken out of this consolidation, came back, tested it once, and we're coming back to test it again, right? And this is the area that price broke out the last time where price is coming back to retest. So makes sense for a pullback. Now let's see what transpires here and if we're able to turn back over and make our way back down to the downside. Okay. And we're just shy of the daily 382, so we're in that 118, 127 zone as well. So now as we come down to the 4 is bouncing back and forth, right? We had a deeper retracement on the 4-hour. We didn't make it to the matching D extension, but we weren't able to break out above to get to that matching D extension. So on the 4, looking for price to come back down like that, right? And then we'll see what happens as we get to some of these lower levels. But looking for a price to turn over at some point and give us this retracement back down to the downside. Okay. Now as we come down to the 1, this is where things get interesting, right? We did have an 80-20 scenario here, but price continued to run to the matching D extension. Okay. Now, when we have fibs like this, or price action like this, where you have the first or second candle that pushes down, right? Past that 382, we look at this because what happened here is just price action. Some of the conversation at the IMF meeting caused this strong price action to the downside here. But your B boundary didn't actually form, right? It wasn't complete until this candle closed. Okay, so periodically, when you see volatile movements, you'll see scenarios like this where your B boundary closes here, but you have a candle that pushes down past that 382. These scenarios, we still count these. These are kind of anomalies, but we count them as 80-20s if they push into that 118, 127 zone again, right? And so we'll look for a price to come back down to the downside because the candle that actually closed to form that B boundary wasn't at that 382. This is kind of a weird scenario. We might have some questions about it, but every now and then you'll see this occur. And when that happens, still look for the same type of price action when price pushes into that 118, 127 zone. Don't see it a ton, but periodically it does happen when you see some volatile action real quick like this here. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, cool deal. So push to that 118 level here, looking to see if price can continue to move back down to the downside out of that 118 127 zone on the 1 hour on the Swiss yen. So we got 80-20 on the lower time frame and your higher time frames, looking to see overall if we can make that move. All right, so keep your eyes peeled on this one, and then obviously we'll continue to watch the Bank of Japan and what they do as well. All right, questions here. All right. Cool deal. Cool deal. Over to the Euro Swiss. Made a beautiful move to the downside, right? This is a daily time frame, push down, retest this weekly level, right? You see, you had nice resistance here as we're making those stair steps to the downside. Now we're making our way back to the upside, right? We came back to retest this level at 96.814, just shy of that 618 retracement level. Okay. So again, scenario where it's break, retest, see if price can settle in here and give us an opportunity to get long, right? That's on the daily time frame. We come down to the 4, right? And we already wicked at 382 on this down fib here, right? So just looking for price to settle in at that weekly support and give us a push back to the upside there. Okay. As we come down to the 1, that's where we sit, right? That weekly support in line with that 618 retracement level. Okay. Looking for price to settle in. You see, we already got some nice bullish action coming out of there. Let's see if we can continue making higher highs and higher lows on our way back to the upside, making our way to the matching D extension here, around 98,802. Okay. So these are your C to D moves, right? Some of them are setting up. We'll see if we can get some of these continuations. We're looking at this being a long play overall, right? As we're coming off of some all-time lows here. Okay. Coming off of some all-time lows. We haven't had much of a retracement, but we got one. Let's see if it continues to move to the upside before it comes down. Right. So that's on the monthly time frame, looking at that move there. And there you are on the weekly, seeing that break and retest here. Right. So let's see if we can get some continuation to the upside on this Euro Swissy. Okay. Questions on the Euro Swiss?
So this is one of those plays where we know what the interest rate situation is and how they made the surprise cut, right? But this in the same sentence, right? You look at it gaining some the Swiss gaining some strength, the Swiss gaining some strength, even though they had that surprise rate cut because of what's going on in the Middle East and what you've been talking about in regards to the uncertainty, right? Which can cause that risk off situation in the market and a flight to safe haven assets. And we know that the Swiss franc is a safe haven. So that's why you see that correction.
Yep, exactly. Appreciate that, bro. All right.
Yep.
So there, let's see if we get things to turn around. All right. Even though things do continue to escalate in the Middle East. All right. No questions there. Cool deal. And then that was actually it. All right. I just had those. Benny, you got any pairs top of mind that you got your eyes on?
No, not really just looking for corrections in the dollar pairs and then for a continuation.
Yeah.
You know, higher for longer. We just need a new sweet spot to either get back into some positions that we might have started to take some profit on, or to add to longer term swing positions with the dollar pairs.
Yeah, for sure. In agreement with you there. Aussie Cat Oil. Got you, Reese. Reese showed us this 80-20 yesterday on this Aussie dollar, right? Sitting in that 118, 127 zone, trying to make its way out. Slow trek, but trying to make its way to the upside to give us that correction that Benny's talking about on this Aussie dollar. And even the euro dollar trying to make its way into that down retracement zone, right? So we're getting a pullback here on the euro dollar. Didn't quite push into that 118, 127 zone. Trying to make our way out. It held there just below that B boundary, trying to make its way back to the upside to give us that high price. So definitely I agree with you, bro. Looking for these high prices on these dollar pairs and dollar crosses to give us an opportunity to get back short. Right, so that's the euro dollar moving back to the upside. So be patient on these. These looking for more C to D moves on the 1 hour time frame. Like I said, you got some 80-20s on the lower time frames that you may be able to take advantage of if that is within your trade plan. Okay. The euro dollar, yeah. Yeah, didn't hit the zone, man. Oh, you're good, Joy. You're good. Joy's been holding that. What was it? The Euro Swissy, she said, since 324. Great work. Didn't hit the TP. Hopefully, we get price to turn around and push back to the upside on that one. Give us a nice little push long. Aussie CAD. So we know yesterday we had some the lower CPI data for the Canadian dollar, right? Which, in the grand scheme of things, makes sense for retracement to come, right? Strong move to the downside here, right? There's the crown pattern on the daily time frame. Form that right tip. I'm going to see if we continue to get catalyst to move this to the downside. But you see on the day, we're getting a bit of a retracement. So we come down to the 4, and you see we pushed into that 618 retracement zone. This is going to be interesting to see how this one moves. We had a decent conversation about it yesterday with the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar, and how things for the Aussie, there's some strength there, or opportunity for strength from a monetary policy perspective, but going to see how things transpire here. My bias on this one is more short than long, but we'll see. So I am looking for a pullback here and retest some of these previous support levels on lower time frames, right in this zone here, and then looking for a potential continuation to the downside. So we're in that pullback phase now. We'll watch and see how things continue to move. We come down to the 1, and this is where we are bouncing off that B boundary, pulling back there. Okay, so we'll see how things move throughout the day today. If we get a push down into the 118 and 127 zone, or if we just continue this move higher back into our sweet spot, right? And then as price gets here, then I'll look for short opportunities if they present themselves. All right, let's go down to the 30. Which I know you're working on some of these lower time frames. 30-minute time frame. That is, yeah, that's what I got there. On the 30, got a fresh AB boundary, and we're pulling back there. Right, so waiting for high prices to then potentially get short for me personally. Questions on the Aussie CAD?
Nope.
All right. George holding 4 hours scaring you. No, I dig it. Yeah, no, definitely, right? Because if it doesn't take out the A, then it has no choice but to go your way. So we'll see overall. This is the larger fib here, right? We did get a 618 retracement, so track to the upside there. But I am I'm tracking off this daily time frame, looking at this potential crown pattern. And I could be completely wrong, right? I could be completely wrong in that. But that's what I'm looking for, that, especially with geopolitical scenarios and oil. Also, tons of articles just bounce back and forth. I meant to post this one in the community. But there's some investors with the geopolitical tensions. They're talking about oil getting to 250.
They were talking about that coming out of COVID.
Yep.
And running up. They've been talking that. I don't see it, but
yeah, I don't see that level either. I see 100, but I don't see 250. I don't see 250 is a long way, man.
250. I'm gonna be plugging my car in.
Thank you.
we're not dealing with the gas station anymore at 250 at 250.
We're not trying to do this no more.
No, I'm
No,
good.
no, that'll really push the EV space to a whole nother level. A whole nother level. But this is where on the daily time frame on oil.
Tesla is dropping though.
Yeah, they're laying off folks and everything, man. Tesla's going through some struggles.
They couldn't sell that $800,000 truck, so they dropped it down to 2.
Yeah. Um, it's a shiny new thing, and ultimately, right, and this is just my personal opinion. Um, Elon Musk is doing a bunch of tests to see to learn about people, right? The way his mind works is so wild. But I think this is just a larger test to see what people will and won't do um, as he prepares for his trek to other planets. I don't know. He's an interesting character, but I don't. I think he's going to continue to test stuff to see if anything sticks. That can then move him into some other spaces and other directions. So,
Kathy Wood just went another 80 million in on Tesla, I believe.
in on Tesla, yeah. I mean, the price drop on it is a beautiful one.
Yep. They're dealing with the one of the major issues that they're dealing with too now is he's losing in China.
Yes. Yes.
As they continue to develop their EV space. So that's one of the biggest things right now that's hurting them.
Yeah, and the thing about China and what they're doing in the EV space, the battery technology is different, and they have some batteries that are running 500-600 miles, and they're starting to get some traction with it. So, yeah, the battery technology and those chips is an interesting space. And it makes for interesting conversation as this space continues to evolve. But I agree with you in their struggles in China for sure. This is a Tesla chart.
Because isn't it a issue with the battery as well? I know because there was a lot of people like in the UP, complaining and stuff, and they was
you got to think
making
about it,
waves
right?
about it.
You got to think about the current technology. Their material, they're just short in a lot of the materials that it takes to make the batteries. That's why I don't know if you guys have seen, but they're doing a ton of deep sea missions at the bottom of the ocean. There's supposedly tons of material to help build these batteries that currently we're short on, but these are parts of the ocean that we've never explored before. So there's tons of deep sea missions happening to get some of this material. Moreover, in the off the coast of Japan and in some of those parts of the ocean over in the Asian Pacific area. But the other thing too is with the current technology, especially in cold weather states and hot weather states, batteries struggle, right? In hot weather states, those batteries just get too hot and they're not able to hold the energy. And in cold weather states, that cold weather also drains that battery quickly. So you have these extreme scenarios where batteries naturally just don't last. So you have to ultimately find another material that's going to be able to withstand extreme temperatures. And there's tons of materials out there, tons of research on different materials. One being graphene, which is said to be one of the best materials, but it's extremely expensive at the moment. So because it's a derivative of graphite, and you got to do a ton of stuff to create it. But tons of research. China, I forget what material they're using, but it's a conversation. It's definitely a conversation, and yeah, so it's a battle. It's definitely a battle. So it'll be interesting to see how things continue to evolve. But Kathy Wood dropping in on Tesla at 157, right? We're just inside that AB boundary on the daily time frame. And on the sub fib, we got an 80-20, right? So her buying is right on time, right? Even if you take that fib out and just look at the 80-20 scenario, right? There's opportunity to buy Tesla there at some pretty decent prices, right? Tesla got as high as in 2021 with 418, right? So coming into some good opportunities, right? Previous support levels as well here, right? So if you're if you're building a portfolio, take a look at it and see what you think, right? Take a look at it and see what you think. You see, this is a key level. We have resistance here, support here, right? And see if it holds that support again and gives another bounce. So interesting. So keep your eyes on Tesla. Back to oil. Oil's pulling back, right? We know we got geopolitical tensions. Things are going back and forth. Market's kind of in a holding pattern as Israel tries to figure out what their response is going to be. They've said that they are going to respond, just a matter of when and how. So overall, this is our capital AB boundary. We pushed off the lows, making our way to the upside. I do see this just as a pullback, and I am looking for a continuation here at some point. Coming down to the $4 source. All right. Coming down to the 4, here's your 80-20 scenario, right? Shallow retracement, 118, 127. And we're making that slide to the downside, right? So all we're looking for, well, all I'm looking for, is price to push into the sweet spot here, all right? And then look for buying opportunities, right? If you didn't trade the 80-20, that's cool. Wait for a low price and then look to get back long. All right. So that's on a 4. Coming down to your 1. You see that 80-20 a bit more clearly there, right? So already on the go out of 80-20, so wait for a low price. And then see if we get that opportunity to ride that back to the upside, right? And then see if the fundamentals align, right? See if we get that catalyst to come in and push that thing to the upside. Geopolitical tensions, and other things. So that's oil. That's oil. Let's see. Down to 30 for you, Reese. See if anything pops in. Here we go. And there you are in the 30. Right. So sweet spot, similar on a 30-minute time frame. Looking for that low price. Right. Not surprised, Joy. Not surprised. Joy's been holding this for months on end. And probably looking for a low price to add to her multiple positions long on oil. Beautiful. Great work. Great work. All right. Any questions? 80-20 selling down like that. Any questions on oil? Nope. All right. Cool deal. Yeah, a lot of these dollar pairs have 80-20s on them, right? So here on the dollar yen, you got pricing at 118, 127 zone. Add your additional confirmations in, right? Because the dollar has been on a tear and it may stay that way. So just add your additional confirmations in. You got 80-20 on the 4 and 80-20 on the 1 on this dollar yen. I'm looking for price to push a little bit higher here, so I'm being patient on the dollar yen piece. But you do have those scenarios. So run your trend lines, drop your cloud, and wait for those additional pieces to be met before entering trades on this dollar yen. Okay. That's just a quick look. Any questions on the dollar yen? All right. And unless Bank of Japan comes in today and does their thing, and then we'll see this take off. All right, cool deal. Trying to find. We're talking about that previous intervention, right? There was one September happened, and then here in October 2022, there was that other move on the dollar yen. That was also intervention from the Bank of Japan, right? It started this move here. Boom. 800 pips in a couple days, right? So strong move to the downside, and then it just continued 2,400 pips to the downside, and then we saw buying for forever. But dollar Swiss and dollar CAD, I got a hard stop at 7:30 this morning, so we will wrap it up there. Here we are on the dollar Swiss, right? It just missed that 118 level. Trying to turn over here. We'll see, right? We're talking about that Swissy. We'll see if we get this retracement. This will be more of a dollar retracement, and profit taking on dollar pairs if this occurs. So we'll see if we get this move back down to the downside. Didn't push into the didn't hit my level. I hope that it does. Hope we get another push to the upside, but there's the 80-20 forming on that dollar Swiss. I think we looked at this one yesterday as well. But we're sitting there in that zone. I'd love to see one more push to the upside, right? Push into that 118, 127 zone, maybe even get to 92, 428. And then potentially a move back down. So again, right, with these dollar pairs, I am playing them a little more cautiously, with additional points of confirmation. So just make sure those rules are met. Those additional confirmation rules are met, because we could see, right, with IMF meetings and geopolitical tensions and all of those things adding up, right? Just add those additional pieces in. All right. So there's the 80-20 that Reese is talking about. No, he's talking about the dollar CAD. My bad. Juan asked for this one, right? So there on the 4 hour. Come down to the 1. And let's see. See what we have. All right, there's your 80-20 on the 1. All right, shallow retracement, pushing to the 118, 127 zone. Great work, man. Great work. All right. Told you the more you see it, you can't unsee it, and the better you become. So great work, Juan. So push into the zone there, right? So let's see if we can get some trend line breaks and moves back down to the downside. Okay. Questions on the dollar Swiss? Oh, all right, cool deal. You're welcome. Dollar CAD. Overall, this is where we sit on the dollar CAD, right? From a longer term perspective, bullish, trying to, there we go, trying to make our way long, right? So we run into this daily level 138,540, and we'll see what happens here. Okay, we'll see what happens. So coming down to the 4. Boom. It's the 80-20 scenario that Reese is talking about. Shallow retracement, just shy of that 118 level. Again, another scenario where I'd love to see another push to the upside. Push into that zone, right, and touch that 138,995 level before we see price turnover and move back down to the downside. We're testing the trend line now. Let's see what happens here, right? If we continue to move sideways, we'll just adjust that trend line to the outermost point, and wait for a nice bearish trend line signal there. Okay. So that's on the 4 down to the 1. All right, pushing through that 118, 127 zone there. Okay, daily resistance. Let's see if we get to that D extension. So we'll watch that. And you see on the 1 hour, we're moving sideways through that trend line there. So on the one, if you're tracking that there, right, you would adjust that to the outermost point. All right, and wait for a nice bearish candle to break that. Okay, so Reese, appreciate you dropping that in. That's your 80-20 on the Dow CAD. Questions? No? Questions on anything that we covered this morning? No? All right, cool deal. Benny, anything before we wrap it up, bro? Might have to drop off. All right. Anybody start to tap into that training on the cloud? Anybody have some time to tap into that yet?
No, I didn't even know it was out yet. But
Yeah.
what can
I
I
let
find?
the team know yesterday that we got it uploaded. All right.
Okay.
So show you guys real quick. And then we'll wrap it up here. So that cloud training, when you go into the course, right? Go into the course, it is under continuing education, right? And this is a section where we'll continue to build out some new pieces as we develop them. They'll go into this continuing education section. So that's where we can find it all there. There's no quiz at the end of it, but definitely dig through it. Benny did a phenomenal job with this one, man. So broke down all the parts in really its simplest form to really be able to understand the cloud, what it is, why it was created, how it works, and how we can implement it into our trading plan. So appreciate you for that, bro. So that's where we are, right? Take a look at that when you get a chance. All right. So there we go. Benny, anything before we wrap it up, bro?
Hey, always continue to be patient, right? We've been doing this long enough now. Wait for your sweet spots and your setups, right? So when we you know pull the trigger on these setups, they're usually pretty big setups, even on the 30-minute or 15-minute, right? They're not in and out type of setup. So it's worthwhile to just wait, right?
Yes.
Wait, pick your spots, use your additional confirmations, like Ryan kept saying on these dollar pairs, right? Yep. They're in a situation where they're looking like they want to correct, but we know now fundamentally when we have extreme circumstances, right? The dollar is super bullish, right? So we want to make sure that we use additional confirmations if we're looking at playing those corrections, right? So one of the things that'll tip you off all the time is that when you have those correct, like those 80-20s lining up across the board on one particular currency, right? You want to make sure you use those additional confirmations because it's all happening at the same time, and you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're over trading. So
Exactly.
just be patient, pick your spots, and then just like we say with our credo every morning, once the trade is commenced, don't look back.
Yes, sir. Good people. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the pre-New York session with my awesome partner, Mr. Benny Allen. You guys have a phenomenal Wednesday, and we will see you in the community. Peace.
Thank you.